The views and opinions expressed on this program are those of the guests appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of 8 News Now or Nexstar Media Group.
If they are used in a crime, law enforcement has no way to trace them.
Tonight on Politics Now, are ghost guns a problem? How the legislature is taking on a controversial proposed ban.
Nevada residents to be annoyed or scammed by these calls.
They are annoying and we get them all day. What the government's doing about spam calls and scammers. And educating our children. We're going to break down the bill making complex changes to how we fund education in Nevada.
From 8 News Now, this is Politics Now.
If you are fully vaccinated, you can start doing the things that you had stopped doing because of the pandemic.
If you have gotten a coronavirus vaccine, you can start taking off those masks. Thank you for joining us on Politics Now. I'm John Langler. This week, the Centers for Disease Control issued new mask guidelines. Now, anyone who is fully vaccinated can participate in indoor and outdoor activities without a mask. And Nevada has adopted these guidelines as well. A maskless President Joe Biden touted the updated recommendations and urged more Americans to get the vaccine.
I think it's a great milestone, a great day. It's been made possible by the extraordinary success we've had in vaccinating so many Americans. Get vaccinated or wear a mask until you do.
The CDC says fully vaccinated Americans have to still wear masks when traveling, so we have to wear them on planes and buses, etc. We also have to follow any extra local guidelines. Also this week, Southern Nevada started using the vaccine for the first time on 12 to 15-year-olds. Nevada lawmakers have to give $107 million back to taxpayers. This week, Republicans won a lawsuit before the state Supreme Court about the payroll tax. Democrats kept the payroll tax from expiring during the 2019 legislative session, but they did not get the 2/3 vote required by the state constitution for a tax hike. That money was going to go to education. However, this ruling isn't really going to be a big effect on the state budget, not going to blow a giant hole in it. And that's because the state now has $586 million more than expected. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later on here in the program. In an editorial on the case in the Nevada appeal, Senate Minority Leader James Settlemyre led that lawsuit and says, quote, "It just shows that they stole money from people when they didn't have the authority to do so." A joint statement from Majority Leader Nicole Cannizzaro and Assembly Speaker Jason Frierson says, quote, "It is disheartening that Nevada families must pay a price for a lawsuit from colleagues who were unwilling to stop playing partisan politics with our children's education dollars." So now continuing the discussion with education money, plans to change how Nevada funds K-12 schools. It's slowly moving forward in the legislative session. There's a new bill called Senate Bill 439. It is dense, but it deals with fully implementing the new pupil-centered funding plan. The I-Team's Vanessa Murphy breaks it down for us.
The bill takes more than 80 different revenue streams that go to schools and puts them all into one giant pot of school money. That means it does away with programs like Zoom schools and Victory schools. Those are programs that give extra money to schools with high numbers of English language learners or students on free and reduced lunches. Instead, all the money from the new giant pot will be given to schools based on what are called weights for the students. Those weights will be higher for students with special needs, that are at risk, or that are English language learners, and the school will get more money. The Nevada State Education Association voiced concerns during the first hearing this week, saying they want to keep those programs like Zoom and Victory schools. So let's talk about gathering up all that money into one pot. For now, Governor Steve Sisolak wants to only do that with the money from the state. Money from local sources like property taxes would not go into that pot for a few years. About 70% of the money that goes to schools now is from local sources. The bill is exempt, so lawmakers have 3 weeks to figure out all of that. There has also not been any new money assigned to education yet this session.
Vanessa, thank you. A separate bill moves $268 million from the state's general fund to schools to help deal with budget losses during the pandemic. That is Senate Bill 444. A bill to abolish the death penalty looks like it's getting the death penalty. Top Democrats said this week the bill cannot pass in Carson City. Governor Steve Sisolak says he doesn't see a path forward. Senate Majority Leader Nicole Cannizzaro also says an agreement can't be reached. It did pass the Assembly along party lines, but it's kind of stalled in the Senate. The bill would have done away with the death penalty in Nevada and convert current death sentences into life sentences. One of the most contentious bills this legislative session has to deal with gun control. A bill that would ban so-called ghost guns did pass its Senate committee ahead of Friday's deadline. Those are guns made with unregistered home kits. Assembly Bill 286 already passed the Assembly along party lines. It's sponsored by Democratic Assemblywoman Sandra Yagari. She says the lack of regulations makes it easier for felons and prohibited people to get those guns.
If they are used in a crime, law enforcement has no way to trace them because they do not have serial numbers. In 2020, federal ATF agents raided a Nevada-based company, Polymer 80, one of the nation's largest manufacturers of ghost guns. Polymer 80 was illegally manufacturing and distributing firearms, failing to pay taxes, shipping guns across state lines, and not conducting background checks.
The problem that you're trying to fix, the term you guys used was circumventing the background process. You really believe that if we simply require some sort of serial number on this, and now these felons are going to start not being able to get weapons because they're going to, oh, geez, I'd love to get one, but I can't because I got to do a background check?
That is Republican State Senator Ira Hansen, who says the bill, all it would do is punish law-abiding gun owners. There is a provision in the bill for antique guns that don't have serial numbers because they were made before 1938. More than 52,000 opinions have been submitted on this measure so far. The ghost guns, the most commented on measure. Most are against it by about 6-1. The election bill that makes mail-in voting permanent, that's Assembly Bill 321. It's the 5th most commented on measure. Those are about 3-1 in favor. The bills with the 2nd through 4th most opinions didn't make their deadlines. A separate ghost gun ban was in the U.S. Senate this week. The Justice Department says more than 20,000 guns without a serial number were recovered by law enforcement over the past 4 years. Well, they split along party lines there, too. Democrats support legislation to make it harder to build those weapons. Republicans say ghost guns just aren't a real problem. Well, they annoy us all, and you may get them on a weekly or maybe even a daily basis. Telemarketing, spam, robocalls. Why do we get so many, and what can we do about them? The I-Team's Vanessa Murphy is back with a look at that issue.
Please press 1 now to get connected with certified technician.
Hey, this is John. I'm sorry if I missed you. I just wanted to reach out personally.
From those pesky robocalls to telemarketing calls.
All of a sudden, recently, I got 6 in one day.
Marlo Fuller says he's had enough.
You're trying to do stuff and the phone's constantly bothering you.
The Federal Trade Commission reports that more than 46,000 Nevadans filed complaints about robocalls in 2020. The state has the 6th highest number of complaints in the nation per capita. About 35,000 reported typical robocalls, meaning a human wasn't on the line. More than 9,000 reported live callers.
Hello? Your car warranty is about to expire.
The majority of calls are reported as imposters. Think fraudsters.
Hello, this is the IRS. Please contact us immediately as you're being audited.
Warranties and protection plans are next on the list, followed by offers to reduce debt.
We don't want Nevada residents to be annoyed or scammed by these calls.
The Attorney General's office has a consumer protection division. Michelle Newman is a senior deputy attorney general.
Yes, anything that would be considered a deceptive trade practice, that's misleading, that's fraudulent, that omits any material information that consumers would need to know.
In January, Nevada was part of a federal lawsuit to take action against a charity fraud telefunding operation. The lawsuit states 8 defendants reached 67 million consumers and collected donations for practically non-existent charitable programs, including for children's cancer, homeless veterans, and fire victims. According to the Attorney General's office, the operation stole about $110 million dollars from donors, including Nevadans, while pocketing as much as 90 cents for every dollar. Court records reveal the defendants are now banned from fundraising and telemarketing, and they're ordered to sell property and donate to charity. Newman's advice for consumers: just hang up. Don't dial any numbers, including an option to remove yourself from the calling list, and register your number on the Do Not Call registry. As of 2020, the FTC reports more than 2 million phone numbers in Nevada are actively registered on the Do Not Call list. The problem? Scammers ignore it.
I'm on the do not call list, but I still get these calls about my car warranty and trying to sell me something. Is that allowed?
No, it's not allowed.
You can report that unwanted call. As for Fuller, he has a long list of phone numbers. He even did some digging and tracked down one business address to an empty lot.
I think it should be shut down, especially if it is a scam.
Vanessa Murphy reporting there and being distracted by our own staff during her stand-ups. There are apps which can help stop those calls. Vanessa mentioned that. You can also block calls on your cell phone after the call comes in. The Do Not Call registry, though, it doesn't prevent political calls, debt collection, or informational calls. Surveys and calls for charity are also allowed. Well, the state is starting to spend its extra $586 million. First, lawmakers plan to restore cuts to Medicaid. Those were made at the beginning of the pandemic. In that program, we'll get $125 million this year, as you see on your screen, $176 million next year. That's $301 million in the next 2 years. More than 800,000 Nevadans do get services from Medicaid. Having trouble recruiting.
People's perception of the police, George Floyd.
Sheriff Joe Lombardo there telling us all about Metro's hiring problems, the budget for the department, and the tragic case of Amari Nicholson. That's on Politics.
To get your free consultation today.
Welcome back to Politics Now.
The tragic murder of 2-year-old Amari Nicholson here in the Valley has caused a lot of outpouring in our community. The child's boyfriend's mother, the mother's boyfriend, Terrell Rhodes, is charged in the murder. As our I-Team reported this week, police say that he has confessed to the crime after initially claiming the child was kidnapped. Now, this week on Good Day Las Vegas, I spoke with Clark County Sheriff Joe Lombardo. We discussed the Amari Nicholson case. We also talked about Metro's budget and trying to hire in this environment. We start with the tragic case that we've been following for the better part of a week. The search now into the death of 2-year-old Amari Nicholson. It's a horrible case, obviously, and I know there's a lot of investigation still to be done on this. But just maybe can we talk a little bit about the challenges of an investigation like this for detectives to try and get some resolution?
Yeah, first and foremost, I want to send out my condolences to the family and try to get some modicum of understanding of what they're going through associated with this. It's a tragic event. And I appreciate you asking the question, John, because, you know, as you imagine, we're human beings also, and when we're dealing with a situation like this, it charges us emotionally, and especially when we can't get answers. And, you know, there's the life of a 2-year-old involved. And I think the most important aspect of this is for us to get information in a timely manner. Unfortunately, we were informed late in this process with the missing of the child. There was some assumptions that the child may have been with another family member, and then, you know, we subsequently had to get heavily engaged because when we realized there were some problems with the statements that were being made.
Let's finally talk about the budget, Sheriff. Last year, during the depths of the pandemic, Metro had to make a lot of budget cuts, a lot of tough decisions, hiring freezes. Where do things stand now as the Valley starts to come out of the pandemic?
Yeah, you're right. We did have to make some significant cuts, and we had some hiring freezes both on the policing side, the correction side, and the civilian ranks. And we even eliminated some programs. We anticipated the sales tax to be dire, which is a significant number associated with our budget. But with the federal stimulus, it wasn't as bad as we predicted. So with that knowledge and the ability to move forward and to go back to our 6 Academy a year program, we are increasing hiring and trying to get back to where we were previous to the COVID pandemic. But that doesn't happen overnight. It's like turning a cruise ship per se. It's going to take us around 10 to 12 months to get back to our original numbers that we experienced before.
And on that note, we've got a few seconds left here. We're in the middle of National Police Week, where we recognize the work of the men and women in law enforcement. Is it getting harder to retain and also just hire folks to join the force right now?
Yeah, it is. You know, we had not a significant additional number of people separate from the police department during the pandemic, or last year, let's use calendar year last year. We averaged right around 170 on the policing side on an annual basis. We had additional 60 people leave last year. And we are having trouble recruiting. Now, that could be a combination of people's perception of the police, George Floyd post events, and then, you know, people were in fear of the COVID. You know, we're essential workers. We had to go to work on a daily basis, just like normal business, where other people had the ability to remain at home and sequester themselves from the pandemic. And we didn't have that luxury. So there was some fear associated with that. Now we're moving forward. People are getting inoculated, and hopefully we can increase those numbers as we continue to go forward. Now, we're still dealing with the perception of the police as a whole, but here locally, I think our community supports us wholeheartedly, and hopefully that won't be a problem.
And of course, you can catch our conversations with Sheriff Lombardo every Wednesday morning on Good Day Las Vegas, and you can send your questions to him through us as well. Next on Politics Now, is there a GOP civil war? We'll take a look at a change in Republican leadership on Capitol Hill that took place this week. Plus, how long will unemployment benefits be extended? The arguments for and against entering those extra payments coming up.
Sponsored by Capriati's.
You're watching Politics Now.
This week, the Republican Party removed Wyoming Congresswoman Liz Cheney from her leadership position. Cheney had been critical of former President Donald Trump's claims of election fraud.
We cannot be dragged backward by the very dangerous lies of a former president.
Cheney was the GOP conference chair. That's the number 3 spot in the House. Soon after the decision, New York Congresswoman Elise Stefanik announced her plans to take Cheney's spot. Pennsylvania Congressman Mike Kelly supports the idea.
When you're representing the entire party, it becomes a much bigger responsibility, and I think she has the capability of course, doing that.
And subsequently, Congresswoman Stefanik did replace Cheney in a vote on Friday morning. Republican senators are calling to end federal unemployment benefits 3 months early. Now, we're talking about the extra $300 per check many Americans are getting right now. GOP lawmakers say that money is keeping people from returning to the workforce. But the White House argues it's the pandemic that's costing jobs. Our Washington, D.C. correspondent Kelly Meyer reports.
Enhanced unemployment benefits are creating an incentive for people not to return to work until they expire.
Florida Republican Senator Marco Rubio says federal unemployment benefits are keeping countless workers off the job.
It's not because people are lazy. Right? Accusing anyone of being lazy. It's because people are logical.
Instead of working, Rubio says many in his state are making close to or more money from weekly unemployment benefits.
Over and over and over again, hearing that from small businesses in various sectors, so not just restaurants and hotels and hospitality.
The group of 10 GOP senators want to phase out federal unemployment benefits by June. That's 3 months before they are currently set to expire.
The Biden bucks are keeping people from going back to work.
The actual issues at play here are the pandemic.
White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki says the benefits aren't hurting the economy and points to child care as one factor holding people back.
There are millions of Americans out there who, through no fault of their own, have been knocked flat on their back this past year.
President Joe Biden has said the issue is not enough jobs and not enough that pay well. Rubio says that's not the case in Florida.
What about making sure that these individuals have a well-paying job to go back to?
Because of the labor shortage, most of these places are paying more than they've ever paid before.
President Biden said this week that those getting unemployment benefits must accept suitable employment when it's offered. Reporting in Washington, I'm Kelly Meyer.
Well, there's a new Associated Press poll. It gives President Joe Biden a 63% favorable rating right now compared to 36% disapproval. That 27-point spread is the widest since he took office. Americans, though, have a much more sour view of Vice President Kamala Harris. You can see an Economist YouGov poll gives her an unfavorable rating of 48%, 41% favorable. 57% of independents view Vice President Harris negatively. Meanwhile, up next on Politics Now, you don't normally think of lawmakers and TikTok. Well, one Nevadadan is using the platform to good use, and we'll talk about that
It's 6, only on 8 News Now.
This week in What to Watch, Friday was another deadline day at the state legislature. Bills have to make it out of their committee in the second house. So coming up this week, we're going to watch what to break down, some that did and did not manage to pass. We'll talk about that next week. And we also talked about a lot of budgets in this show. That has to start wrapping up next week as well. One Nevada lawmaker is on TikTok right now teaching about government.
Hey TikTok, today's word's Wednesday, and today's word of the day is Attorney General. And who better to learn about the word of the day than the Attorney General himself?
Hey TikTok, I'm Nevada Attorney General Aaron Ford, the people's lawyer. And we do a lot in my office.
All right, that's Assemblywoman Selena Torres posting TikToks, little videos, about 30 seconds, teaching folks about government. She's up in Carson City, and this week it was Attorney General Aaron Ford. He talked about consumer protection and talked about what his job is. Right now she has about 6,500 followers on the platform. Just an early start for Assemblywoman Torres on the TikToks. So I gotta look into that. Thank you for watching us here on Politics Now. You can stay up to date with us online and maybe on TikTok as well. We're back here every Saturday. Thank you for watching and have a good rest of the week.